Thanks, Sophie. Hello, you're watching Wales Today. I'm Nick Savini. They're off. After months of build-up, Wales's players are on their way to Qatar for their first World Cup in 64 years.
I reckon as soon as they've got that one game, they've won that one game, all they need to do is keep striving forward and they'll be fine.
It's going to be on every night, so hopefully it'll be a blast to watch them.
But as questions remain over human rights in Qatar, one of Wales's most high-profile gay athletes, Jess Fishlock, says she's apprehensive about going.
It is important for me that I am visible and I use my platform to, not create massive amount of change. I don't think that's going to happen. But will it start a conversation? Maybe.
Also tonight, reigniting the debate on the right to die. Sue Lawford was detained by police for 19 hours after travelling with a woman to Switzerland for her to have an assisted death. As unemployment falls again, we ask how best to build the economy during a cost of living crisis. And from struggling with confidence to playing for Wales, how wheelchair basketball changed this teen's life. Good evening. For many fans, it felt like the moment when, after months of anticipation, the World Cup started to feel real. Today, the players held their last training session at home before boarding the plane at Cardiff Airport to head to Qatar for Wales's first World Cup since 1958. It is also the first time it's been held in the Middle East, and there are plenty of questions remaining about the regime in Qatar. Our first report tonight comes from George Zelensky on the team's final preparations.
Jetting off to their first World Cup in more than 60 years, a historic moment for Welsh football. And that wasn't lost on the fans who turned up at Cardiff Airport to see the players off. The recent success of the Wales team has been unprecedented. Qualification for 2 European Championships and now a World Cup in the last 6 years. And right alongside them, the fans, the Red Wall, with them every step of the way.
I reckon as soon as they've got that one game, they've won that one game, all they need to do is keep striving forward and they'll be fine.
Hopefully they do well. I am praying they do well. I would love to see them in the next stage. It's going to be on every night, so hopefully it'll be a blast to watch them. I hope they have fun and just enjoy themselves, really.
USA's hard, but 50-50 chance of beating them.
And how do you think they're going to do against England? That's a tough one.
They might win. I don't think they're going to win, but I hope they try their hardest.
Ahead of taking to the air, the Wales squad took to the pitch for a final training session on Welsh soil. Cheering them on at the Cardiff City Stadium were hundreds of school children, perhaps the next Gareth Bale or Aaron Ramsey among them. The excitement palpable in a sea of bucket hats and Welsh flags.
Yeah, they look pretty swift. They look up for it, that's for sure. Just hope we beat England, to be honest.
It's like just amazing how all the people have come together watching Wales train before they go to Qatar.
The singing is very passionate, so there's loads of people singing and hoping for them to do well in the World Cup.
Oh, hello, love.
What would I say to someone visiting Wales? Come in and have a look around.
With the eyes of the world on Wales as footballers, an opportunity for Wales as a country to promote itself to the world. The Welsh Government launching a campaign with the aim to highlight Wales as a modern, progressive and diverse country that's welcoming the world in.
We expect from the whole tournament to have a massive increase in people's awareness and interest in Wales. There's both before the tournament and during. And when you're in the region where the World Cup is taking place, there'll be extra opportunity to promote Wales, both within the region, but much more importantly, to the wider world as well.
For at least the next 2 weeks, Rob Page's side will swap the wet weather of Wales for the deserts of Doha, and with them, the hopes of a nation.
Well, as the excitement mounts for the football, the politics continues to cause concern, and some people have criticised those who've decided to go to Qatar. The Wales international Jess Fishlock, who'll be part of the BBC Wales team at the World Cup, and the former Wales women's captain Laura McAllister will be there. They spoke to Felicity Evans about their feelings around making the decision to go.
It's really hard to think about the World Cup just from a purely football perspective. I think that would be also a little naive to think that people could kind of do that. It's a shame that you don't get just the normal excitement of Wales being in the World Cup, which obviously is such a tremendous feeling for us as a nation. But obviously as human beings, it's really hard to kind of enjoy that excitement without listening and feeling and having an opinion on where it's being held.
It's a horribly compromised tournament for everyone who attends, and lots of us believe that it shouldn't have been awarded to Qatar in the first place. But that's football politics, and that decision was made 12 years ago, and here we are, having qualified for our first tournament for 64 years. Like Jess, you know, I'm a massive Wales fan, but I think it's important to say that both of us are going there to work. But we've had to do a lot of soul searching. I mean, we've talked a lot, Jess, haven't we? You know, we're two gay women going to Qatar, to a regime where, you know, not only is homosexuality not accepted, but it's actively repressed. And that obviously leaves us uncomfortable. We know that women's rights are poorly respected there. So there's lots of reasons why we wouldn't wish to be going to Qatar, but we do want to be there for a couple of important reasons for Wales and for the Welsh nation, not just for Welsh football. And I think just the most important thing of all is that, you know, this is simply the biggest mega sporting event you can imagine. The eyes of the world are on it, and we are one of the only 32 countries that have qualified for that. So half the world's population will be watching little old Wales, you know, our flag, our anthem, our captain, our fans playing on the biggest stage ever. So we've got to squeeze every ounce of benefit from that for the nation as a whole.
You two are trailblazers for women in sport, and for women in football in particular. It must make you feel a bit queasy to be going to a country that is so repressive of women's rights to make even the most basic decisions about their own lives without the permission of a male guardian.
I'd be lying if I didn't say that there was a bit of me that was apprehensive about going over and kind of being in that situation. But one thing I will say, and I've said it since the decision that I decided to come out as a gay athlete, is that visibility is key. And so going over there, even with the apprehension, it is important for me that I am visible, and I use my platform to, you know, not create massive amount of change. I don't think that's going to happen, but will it start a conversation? Maybe.
People need to remember that there's 31 other countries there which are at different stages of their development when it comes to women's rights and LGBT rights. And Jess and I will be engaged in conversations with all of those as well. So, you know, you've got to be in the room in sports diplomacy terms. If you're not in the room, you can't influence. And this isn't a World Cup that is being boycotted by anybody, actually. So, you know, for us, it makes much more sense for us to go there, live our values, express our opinions, and have the conversations about change.
Let's talk about the football for a minute then, shall we? How far can Wales go?
I think the biggest game for me is the USA game. I'm quietly confident that they'll get out of the group, but a lot does ride, I think, on that first game against USA.
Jess Fishlock and Laura McAllister speaking to Felicity there. Now, it's a case that has reignited the debate about whether someone should have the right to die. A retired NHS worker says she was arrested and detained for 19 hours after travelling with a woman to Switzerland for her to have an assisted death. Sue Lawford said she accompanied Sharon Johnston in order to show compassion. Dyfed-Powys police say assisting a suicide is a criminal offence, but says the case has now been closed with no one facing charges. Here's Nellie Bird.
You know, I didn't know her really very well at all, but I've admired her courage, I suppose.
This is Sue Lawford from Cardiff. Earlier this year, she travelled to Dignitas with Sharon Johnston. You might remember Sharon. Last autumn, she took part in a BBC Wales Investigates programme, explaining why she wanted help to end her life after a fall left her paralysed.
I've thought about it a lot. I've dreamt about it. sad to say.
By then, the plans were already pretty advanced. And so, in February of this year, even though the women had only met once before, their journey began. They were heading to a Dignitas house like this, and despite receiving phone calls from the police along the way, they made it. This is the two of them together during Sharon's final hours.
She drank the liquid through a straw. After a minute or two, she opened her eyes and she just said, "This is a lovely feeling." And then she went off to sleep again. And a minute later, she was gone.
After Sharon died, Sue returned home to Cardiff.
At 5:30 the next morning, fast asleep, there was a loud bang, bang, bang on the door. I came down in my pyjamas and two policewomen were in the front room and said, "We're here to arrest you." I was shocked, to be honest. It just seemed a little bit heavy-handed, that's all.
Today, Sue travelled to London to speak about her experience. The campaign group she's part of, My Death, My Decision, says the story supports their belief that the law needs to change. At the moment, anyone found to encourage or assist a suicide of someone else faces up to 14 years in prison. But official figures suggest that only 4 cases of assisted suicide have been prosecuted in the UK. Potential new laws have been debated here in Parliament a number of times over the years, but many believe that any changes would be dangerous and are concerned about developments in other countries like Canada.
This is a very emotive story, and of course one feels for them in the moment of sympathy. But you have to look at what happens when you change the law. We know that in countries that have gone down this road, it gets rapidly extended to include people who aren't being adequately supported at home for social care, to extend it to children with disabilities, to adults with disabilities. We're even hearing of people who can't pay their rent and might be homeless and are therefore opting for euthanasia. This is very, very dangerous.
Dyfed-Powys Police said it was a criminal offence to encourage or assist the suicide of another person and said a thorough criminal investigation was required to establish the facts of each case. It also confirmed that the investigation into Sharon Johnston's death was now closed, meaning Sue will face no action after a 6-month investigation. There are strong feelings back and forth in the debate on assisted dying, but for now, the law in the UK remains the same.
The Economy Minister, Vaughan Gething, says the Welsh Government will consider a call for an inquiry into all police forces across Wales and England after allegations of misogyny, corruption and racism at the Gwent force were published by the Sunday Times. Meanwhile, BBC Wales has learned that at least one senior police officer recently dismissed by Gwent Police for gross misconduct in a separate incident at a police social event in 2019 is appealing the decision. A 75-year-old swimming instructor who sexually abused 5 young girls has been jailed for what police called heinous and indefensible crimes. Robert Rickson from Porthcawl was found guilty at Cardiff Crown Court of 28 charges of sexual assault, including one of rape. He's been sentenced to 25 years in prison. The number of COVID deaths in Wales has risen to its highest weekly total since the end of July. Coronavirus was a factor in 44 deaths in the week ending the 4th of November, which takes the total since March 2020 to more than 11,000. A legal challenge to relationships and sexuality education in schools has been heard by the High Court in Cardiff. A group of parents say they should be able to withdraw their children from lessons, while the Welsh Government insists anything covered under RSE is appropriate for the children's development. Our education and family correspondent Bethan Lewis was listening to what was said in court. So, Bethan, first of all, what was the background to this?
Well, relationships and sexuality education is a mandatory part of the new curriculum, which started being rolled out to primary school children and some of the younger secondary school children from September. Eventually, it'll cover all 3 to 16-year-olds. There's no parental opt-out. So unlike the previous sex education for secondary school children, parents can't withdraw their children from class. But RSE is supposed to be a lot broader, so it'll cover things like respect, consent, friendship, rights, body image, sexual health, as well as sex, gender and sexuality.
And what was said in court today?
Well, a group of 5 parents have brought this judicial review. They're challenging the Welsh Government's RSE code and guidance. And there was a lot of legal discussions today, but the 2 main issues here really are the content of RSE and what's taught when, and also this issue of the parental right to withdraw. So lawyers on behalf of the parents said there's a risk that children will be taught issues that some parents may find inappropriate. They also questioned the legal basis to withdraw that right of parental withdrawal from classes. The Welsh Government insists that children are only taught what's developmentally appropriate. They say when you're talking about the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, that's things like friendships and families, not romantic or sexual relationships, and this is prohibited by the RSE code. They say teaching RSE is important for children's well-being and safety, and these discussions carry on tomorrow with the second day of the judicial review.
OK, Bethan, thank you very much. Still to come before 7. We hear from 16-year-old Kai about how getting in a wheelchair into wheelchair basketball changed his life.
I came in not really exercising, low self-esteem, not really talking to anyone, and I met this whole community that I never knew existed.
Unemployment has fallen again in Wales, continuing the trend for low numbers of people who are out of work. But rising bills for energy and food means wages are being stretched even further, with some people needing to take on second jobs to make ends meet. Our business correspondent Hugh Thomas has been speaking to people in Caira near Maesteg about the challenge of finding work during a cost of living crisis.
They're laying the foundations for future careers here in Caira near Maesteg. Budding bricklayers are learning a trade that's in demand.
There's a massive void with the construction industry. They're hungry for staff and for workers. I speak with a number of companies and they're eager to get the students on board.
Students are learning the skills they'll need on site, as well as the theory that'll help them deal with contracts and tricky customers.
I'm moving to get an apprenticeship with bricklaying and block masonry, but yeah, I'm enjoying the course.
I've always had an idea of flipping houses, working on my own houses, investing in real estate, so I thought this would be a good starting point for me to be able to get into that type of work.
Today's figures from the Office for National Statistics show that Wales had an unemployment rate of 3.7% in the 3 months to September. That's a fall of 0.1% on the same time last year. But more people have left the jobs market and aren't available to work. The figures show the proportion of the population in work is now 72.3%, a small fall of 1.4% on this time last year.
Places like this are giving people the skills to get better jobs with better wages. But for those people in jobs with low incomes, they're finding it increasingly difficult to pay the bills.
At the community centre in Caira, there's a pay-what-you-can food shop. And while they've always served people who are out of work, the picture is changing.
We find that a lot of working people are coming in now because they're struggling as well. So
it's not the idea that you're helping people who are out of work.
And things, we're helping people that are working as well.
The community centre also offers discount food in its cafe and coaching services for people who are out of work. People like Carl, who's 60 years old and just lost his job as a school caretaker.
I'm out of work at the moment. That's why I've just done some applications now online. Unfortunately, that's the way the cookie has crumbled. But my fingers are crossed now.
The rising cost of living means having a job isn't enough to pay the bills. And while unemployment remains low, many people who are in work are having to find other sources of income.
We are hearing from so many different types of workers, low paid, in the middle, who are saying that actually we can't make ends meet anymore. The cost of living crisis is the reality. In-work poverty and the use of food banks has now become completely normalised, whether that's in the public sector or in the private sector.
This course is popular. The students know there are jobs available as long as they've had the right training. But the overall economic outlook is gloomy, and those with skills will be better placed to withstand any storms to come.
A teacher and a teaching assistant facing cruelty and assault allegations against 3 severely autistic children at a special school in Aberdare have told a jury they were simply doing what they had seen other staff do. It's been claimed 2 women were seen ripping ear defenders from the head of a child with sensitivity to noise and inappropriately handled other children. Colette Hume is at Swansea Crown Court for us tonight. Colette.
Nick, the court was told that staff at the school became concerned about the way the 2 women were dealing with the children aged 8, 9 and 10. Those concerns were reported, CCTV footage was examined and the 2 women were suspended in October 2020. Now, 33-year-old teacher Laura Murphy told the court she was given only very limited autism training before being asked to take on the class of 6 severely autistic children. And Mandy Hodges, the lady in the black coat going into court, said she had no experience at all of working with children who used ear defenders until she joined Ms. Murphy's class. Both women say they removed ear defenders from the 9-year-old child who can't be named for legal reasons in order to calm him and communicate with him. And they both said on other occasions they had dealt appropriately with children they believed were going to injure them or other children. Mandy Hodges was asked in court this afternoon if she had taken the ear defenders away as a quick way to punish a child. She said, "I didn't punish him. I am not a cruel person. I would never hurt a child." The parents of the 3 children involved were in court. They were in tears as the 2 women gave their evidence. Laura Murphy and Mandy Hodges deny all the charges against him, and the trial here at Swansea Crown Court continues.
OK, Colette, thank you very much for that. Rugby, and the Scarlets' back row Josh McLeod will make his Wales debut against Georgia this weekend. Coach Wayne Pivac has made 6 changes from the side that beat Argentina for the penultimate autumn test. But there is still no room for Alan Wynne-Jones. McLeod, Ben Carter and Jack Morgan start in the forwards, while Josh Adams, Owen Watkin and Rhys Priestland are named in the backs.
We're going to have to keep an eye on them. There's no doubt about that. They're very physical. You saw that in the game with Samoa, 2 physical teams going at it. So, you know, we're going to have to front up as we did last week, physically, with the ball and without the ball. So that's our challenge, is to back up last week and go again for another 80. Because if we don't go for the full 80, we'll be in trouble like any side.
A teenager from Ceredigion says joining a local wheelchair basketball club has changed his life. 16-year-old Kai Frisbee, who has cerebral palsy, says he became more confident after joining the West Coast Warriors, which helped him to go on to play for Wales. Kai recently took part in the BBC Children in Need Rickshaw Relay. He said he wanted to give something back to the charity, which has provided invaluable support to his club. And Craig Duggan went to meet him.
A West Coast Warriors training session. The wheelchair basketball club in Aberystwyth has members of all ages and all abilities. Among them is 16-year-old Kai, whose cerebral palsy means he uses a wheelchair constantly. As a younger boy, his disability affected his confidence. But that all changed when he took up basketball.
Basketball for me was absolutely life-changing, you know, given my circumstances. You know, I came in not really exercising, low self-esteem, you know, not really talking to anyone, and I met this whole community that I never knew existed up until that point. And you know, they just welcomed me into the family and just showed me that despite being in a chair, it's probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
Basketball came along at a great time for Kai, because he's kind of grown in confidence. I've seen him do public talks about his cerebral palsy to some of the health professionals that I work with. Yeah, he amazes me.
Kai, you're doing well, mate.
Cheers, Matt.
Feeling good?
Yeah, I'm feeling great.
You're looking good.
Cheers, not so bad yourself.
Last month, Kai took part in the Children in Need Rickshaw Relay, riding 12 miles around Aberystwyth with presenter Matt Baker. He'll be featured in a documentary tonight.
Look at this.
Kai said it was his way of thanking the charity that has given invaluable support to the basketball club.
I've been really lucky to be able to, you know, find that who I really am and be able to experience all these things. And I think that was the main reason for me as well, was, you know, there's a lot of kids out there who haven't had that chance. You know, if you get a little bit of funding from Children in Need, I'm sure they can make that happen.
Children in Need have been our lifeline, absolute lifeline. They've helped us with equipment, sessions, funding for coaching. I mean, this club wouldn't be where it is today without the support of Children in Need.
A charity that's helped Kai reach new heights, from making new friends to playing for Wales. Children in Need goes on helping so many other young people transform their lives in a similar way.
And as Craig said there, you can see Kai in the rickshaw relay rides again on BBC One Wales tonight at 8 o'clock, and BBC Children in Need 2022 takes place this Friday. Right, let's get the weather forecast. Derek is here. How's it looking?
Nick, you might get wet cycling home this evening, and it's a changeable story, really, for the next few days. That means wet and breezy conditions at times, sunshine and showers in between, with some drier spells. Now, it was soggy and grey this morning in Sychnyn in Flintshire, but the weather did cheer up this afternoon. Turns out quite nice for a while at Lake Vyrnwy in Powys, with some sunshine there. But the dry weather didn't last long. As you can see on the radar, we've seen more rain and showers spreading northwards through the afternoon. Heavy downpours in a few places too. There's more rain and showers to come this evening, quite wet in some places, turning somewhat drier overnight, but these are showers. Some of them will be heavy in the south and west, perhaps with a rumble of thunder. Breezy on some coasts tonight in the south and west, with lowest temperatures in mid and north Wales, dipping as low as 4 or 5 Celsius in places. All eyes are on this area of low pressure over the Atlantic tomorrow. That will reach our shores later in the day. Tomorrow, I think, there will be a window of better weather, dry and bright with some sunshine. A few showers, though, in parts of the south and west, 1 or 2 heavy ones. And then later in the afternoon, things will start to go downhill in the south, turning wet and breezy. Temperatures tomorrow reaching 10 to 13 Celsius with an east to southeasterly breeze. And then tomorrow evening, this wet and breezy weather will spread northwards across the rest of the country, with lowest temperatures around 8 to 10 Celsius. Into Thursday then, we have low pressure sitting over the UK. That means unsettled conditions. Rain will clear on Thursday morning from mid-north and west Wales, so turning drier and brighter through the day. It will be breezy, though, with a few showers. Best the sunshine in the south and feeling cooler in the westerly wind. Into Friday, a better day in prospect. A few showers, mainly near the coast. Otherwise dry and bright with some sunshine and lighter winds. Dry for a while on Saturday, but there's more wet and windy weather on the way. Sunshine and showers on Sunday. Nick.
Derek, thank you very much indeed. That is Wales Today. I'll be back after the 10 o'clock news. Hope you can join me then. Until then, have a good evening.